There is a very specific moment that happens almost every time you enter an elevator with another human being. You walk in, you press your button, you turn around, and then, for reasons nobody has ever formally explained to you, you suddenly become extremely interested in absolutely nothing. Because where are you supposed to look? This is a problem that should not exist. You have had eyes your entire life. You've been using them successfully since infancy. You can walk through a grocery store without wondering where to put them. You can sit on a bus. You can stand in line at a bank. You can wait at a crosswalk. But put you inside a small moving rectangle with three strangers, and suddenly operating your own face becomes a complicated social task. You can't look at the person next to you, obviously. That's immediately too much. Even though they're standing approximately 14 inches away from you, and you are both fully aware of each other's existence, acknowledging this visually would apparently be inappropriate. So you look forward. Except there's nothing forward. There's a door, a metal door. So you stare at the door. And nobody thinks this is strange. Four adult human beings can stand silently inside a box, staring directly at a blank piece of metal, and somehow this is considered significantly more normal than looking at each other. Sometimes there's a mirror, which seems helpful until you realize the mirror has created several new problems. Now you can technically look anywhere, but every direction contains somebody's reflection. You look slightly left and accidentally make eye contact with the man behind you through the mirror. Now you've somehow made eye contact without even facing him, which feels worse. You look at yourself, but you can't look at yourself for too long, because now it seems like you're deeply impressed by your own face. So you check your hair. But only briefly, because apparently there's an acceptable amount of time to look at your own hair in an elevator mirror before it becomes a personality trait. Then you discover the safest object in the entire elevator, the numbers. Everybody loves the numbers. The numbers are incredible. Nobody has ever been more fascinated by basic numerical progression than a group of strangers trapped inside an elevator. 3, 4, 5. Absolutely gripping stuff. You already know you're going to 7. You personally pressed 7. You watched the button light up. You understand roughly how buildings work. And yet, there you are, monitoring every floor like mission control. 6. Almost there. 7. Incredible. And the strange thing is, nobody taught you any of this. There was no elevator etiquette class when you were 6 years old. Your parents probably never sat you down and said, "Listen, one day you'll enter a vertical transportation chamber with strangers. Whatever you do, don't look directly at them." You just figured it out. Somewhere along the way, you observed other humans entering elevators and silently absorbed the rules. Enter. Turn around. Face the door. Maintain distance. Do not stare. Do not speak unless necessary. If someone is running toward the elevator, hold the door if doing so requires minimal sacrifice. If holding the door would require more than approximately 3 seconds of additional waiting, you are now permitted to pretend you didn't see them. These are the laws, and everybody knows them. The positioning is particularly interesting because elevator geometry has its own social mathematics. If you're the first person inside, you usually pick a corner. Then the second person enters and, unless they're completely unhinged, they don't stand beside you. They take another corner. Now there are two humans occupying opposite territories like rival kingdoms. A third person enters. Now things become complicated, because the third person has to calculate the location that maximizes distance from both existing humans. Nobody pulls out a measuring tape. Nobody discusses the problem. The brain simply performs the calculation. Stand here. Perfect. Then a fourth person enters, and the entire system collapses. Now everybody has to compress. Personal space begins disappearing. Shoulders approach other shoulders. Arms begin existing dangerously close to other arms. And everybody responds by becoming even more interested in the door. This is one of the strangest things about elevators. The closer our bodies get, the harder we pretend the other people aren't there. If someone is 6 feet away from you in a hallway, you might smile. 3 feet away, maybe you say hello. 8 inches away inside an elevator, this person does not exist. They are environmental scenery. You may be close enough to smell their shampoo, but socially, you are alone. And then somebody speaks. Going up? The entire elevator has to recover. Because talking in an elevator is allowed, technically. There isn't a law against it. But everyone knows it changes something. Suddenly, the invisible agreement has been broken. Now we are people. A moment ago, we were simply four biological objects being transported between floors. Now somebody has introduced consciousness into the situation. And once one person starts talking, everybody else has to decide whether we're doing this now. Are we an elevator that talks? Because some elevators don't. You can ride 20 floors with someone without exchanging a single word, and neither person considers this rude. Try that in almost any other situation involving two people standing less than a foot apart. Imagine entering someone's kitchen, standing beside them silently for 40 seconds, then leaving. Insane. In an elevator? Perfectly respectable. The weather occasionally saves us. The weather has rescued more elevator conversations than perhaps any other natural phenomenon. Hot today. Yeah, that's enough. Human connection successfully completed. We may now return to the numbers. But elevator rules become even clearer when someone breaks one. Imagine you're standing in an elevator. The doors open. A man walks inside. And instead of turning around, he keeps facing you. That's it. He hasn't threatened anybody. He hasn't said anything. He hasn't touched anyone. He's just standing in the wrong direction. And somehow every cell in your body knows something is wrong. Why? There is no mechanical reason passengers need to face the door. The elevator will reach the correct floor regardless of where your nose is pointing. You could face the back wall. You could face diagonally. You could slowly rotate for the entire journey. The machine does not care. But the humans care tremendously. Stand facing backward in a crowded elevator, and you will immediately become the most important thing happening in that elevator. Nobody will look at you, obviously. That would violate Rule 1. But everybody will become extremely aware of you. Which means elevator etiquette isn't really about transportation. It's about managing the discomfort of proximity. Human beings seem to have an invisible boundary around themselves. We carry it everywhere. Usually the world gives us enough room to maintain it. Then elevators arrive and say, no. Now you're sharing a tiny enclosure with strangers you would normally position several feet away from. So we compensate. If our bodies can't have privacy, our attention can. We look away. We reduce eye contact. We become quiet. We face the same direction. We create psychological distance because physical distance is temporarily unavailable. Which actually makes sense. But knowing why we do it somehow makes it even stranger. Because this means an elevator full of people is basically a room full of nervous systems politely telling each other, I know you're extremely close to me. You know you're extremely close to me. Let's both behave as though this isn't happening. And this illusion works beautifully until the elevator stops. Not stops at a floor, stops between floors. There is perhaps no faster way to destroy elevator social etiquette than for the elevator to make a noise it isn't supposed to make. Suddenly, everybody looks at everybody, instantly. The people you've spent the last 30 seconds carefully pretending don't exist are now your emergency committee. What was that? Nobody knows, but we're a team now. The man whose face you were actively avoiding 12 seconds ago is suddenly somebody whose opinion you deeply value. Do you think we're stuck? I don't know, Kevin, but I'm glad we're finally talking. This is what I find fascinating about these tiny social rules. They feel permanent until something happens that reveals they were invented. The elevator stops, and suddenly, staring at strangers is fine. Talking is fine. Standing close together is fine. You might even learn someone's name. Then the elevator starts moving again. The doors open, everybody leaves, and you will probably never see these people again. Which means elevators are these tiny temporary societies that exist for maybe 40 seconds at a time. A group of strangers enters. Everyone accepts the same unwritten constitution. We distribute ourselves according to available space. We minimize eye contact. We stare at numbers. We acknowledge unusual noises. We occasionally discuss weather. Then the doors open, and the civilization immediately dissolves. Nobody says goodbye. You just walk away. Maybe that's why elevators feel slightly awkward no matter how many times we use them. They force us into a kind of closeness that modern life normally lets us avoid. You can spend an entire day surrounded by thousands of people without being physically close to almost any of them. Then the elevator doors open, and suddenly you're shoulder to shoulder with a dentist named Gary holding a sandwich. Neither of you asked for this relationship, but for the next 11 floors, Gary is part of your life. You know approximately how tall he is. You know what his lunch smells like. You know he's going to 14. You may even know that he sighs when the elevator stops at every floor. And yet, you will probably never look directly at Gary's face, because that would be weird, apparently. And eventually your floor arrives. The doors open, you step out. Sometimes you do the little nod. Sometimes you say, "Have a good one." And then you walk away from the group of people you just spent the last minute silently coordinating your entire body around. Tomorrow, you may do it again. Different building, different strangers, same choreography. Walk in, press button, turn around, find something meaningless to stare at, and wait. Because somehow, after thousands of years of human civilization, after inventing language, cities, airplanes, satellites, and machines capable of carrying us vertically through enormous buildings, we still haven't figured out where to look in an elevator. So we look at the numbers. And somehow, this is normal.